Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Bud with Mental Game Mechanics, and today we're going to talk about how to increase your focus and your productivity. When I was first learning how to shoot, I very quickly learned the power of focus and what it can do for what you're doing. Obviously, with shooting, you got a gun in your hand, you got bullets, you got people all around you, you got a number of things that could go wrong potentially, and so a lack of focus could be detrimental not just to myself but to others, right? And so focus must be a key thing there. I I quickly learned also that focus in just the situation and what's kind of going on around me, but also focus in terms of actually executing a shot. If you can focus well, you can execute well, and those that focus better typically are the winners. And so I learned that concept early on as it applies to shooting, and as I started building a career, I wanted to be successful. I wanted to, build my income, help people. I wanted to do a bunch of stuff. I wanted to, build my dream life. And I knew that I was going to be successful, and I knew that I was going to be able to do all of those things. But there was something that just kept me from, you know, actually getting those results that I was kind of looking for. It's taken me a lot longer than I thought. And maybe that's just my lack of patience, but it's taken me more time than I've wanted to really have the life that I thought that I was going to have. And I as I've been kind of building my career, I've learned the concept of focus doesn't just apply to shooting. It applies kind of in a number of different places, and the thing that kind of comes back to me always is that while I knew focus, I had and planning principles and all of these things that were going on, like I had learned talent, I had learned to plan, I had learned to, I had read through the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, begin with the end in mind, be proactive, put first things first, and so on and so forth, right? I had learned all those concepts. I had learned the power of daily planning. And yet somehow I still struggled to drive and achieve the results that I really wanted. I found myself getting really distracted all the time. It seems like, I'm over here, and then I'm over here, and then I'm over here. And, there's all this just kind of chaos, I guess, is a good way to say it. And it's not that I didn't know how to work. I knew how to work. I knew how to put in time and just grind and hustle and do stuff. It's not that I didn't know how to do that. It's simply that I found myself focusing on the wrong things, right? I found myself looking at the different opportunities in front of me, and I had to look at this one and then this one and this and this, and I found myself getting spread really thin, right? And I learned after a few years ago. I was introduced to one of my favorite books. It's called The Majesty of Calmness. I'm kind of a not traditional, but I like kind of the classic works, stuff that has deep meaning in language that we're not really used to today. And The Majesty of Calmness is just that. It was written about the beginning of the 19th century, or the 20th century, 1900, something like that. And anyway, in that book, one of the key lines that it talks about, one of the things that really stood out to me, that was pointed out to me by one of my mentors, and also as I read through it, I found it as well. But it's a principle that I had been living for years and years and years, in the realm of shooting, and yet never learned or figured out to apply it to my daily productivity, my daily focus. I never like correlated those until I read this line. And it says that education in its highest sense is simply conscious training of the mind or body to act unconsciously. And when I read that, it dawned on me that focus, productivity, any skill set right? Anything that we want to learn is simply the conscious and intentional training of our minds to act unconsciously, to build habits or routines or systems that just operate, right? And I had done that with shooting. You eventually you start, when you learn to shoot, you learn to swing the shotgun. You learn to hold the gun. You learn the mechanics of the thing, and you learn those typically slowly, piece at a time, piece at a time, piece at a time, until eventually it becomes a subconscious skill set. Much like it's kind of like if you were to drive a car, you get in your car. Nine times out of 10, you get in your car, turn it on, put your seatbelt on, turn the radio on, put it in reverse, and you back out and start driving, and you weren't really aware that you were doing all those things. You were thinking about all the stuff you had to do at work, or where it was you were going, or what happened in the house before you left, right? Your mind was on something else, but you did all of those things unconsciously. There's a part of the brain that stores and holds all of those routines and habits, and if we do them enough, our mind just executes them without us having to put any conscious thought into it, right? And that's a true mechanic skill set. It's something that's just mechanical and that just operates on a trigger, right? And that's where real talent lives. And so focus and execution are simply just a skill set, right? I learned that if I can consciously train my unconscious to act in harmony with my values and vision, all of a sudden now I can execute more and do what I want to do, because I've trained my mind to do those things. Focus and productivity are simply a talent. They're simply a skill set that you learn and cultivate and build over time. Why do you think? Why is it that it seems like the successful of the world, everything they touch turns to gold? Why do you think that is? It's because they've built that skill set. Okay? They've learned how to win. They've learned how to get results. They've learned how to drive and execute and move things forward so that what they touch actually does turn to gold, because they've done it, right? They've figured it out. They've learned that process. Anybody who's achieved anything has built a skill set. They've built and cultivated that over time. So if you want to have more focus, if you want to have more productivity, you have to build that talent. You have to build that skill set by consciously and intentionally putting in the time and really driving that focus. And it's not easy at first. There's a phrase that kind of I've heard a lot, and they say the first $1 million is the hardest to make. And to that point, I totally understand, because that first $1 million, you're just trying to figure out, what you're selling and how you're selling it, right? It's all completely new. It's all from scratch, right? Once you've got $1 million business, all of a sudden you've got existing systems that you can optimize and tweak. You got revenue that you can, cut costs on. There's all kinds of things to make more money, to make that second or third or fourth or fifth million. But that first $1 million, you're building a new skill set, right? Just like when you learn to drive a car. Let's go back to the car analogy here. Putting it in reverse, if you've ever watched a teenager put a car into reverse, they're typically like, put my foot on the brake, and if it's automatic transmission here, put the foot on the brake, push the button on the gear or pull it back or whatever, and then slowly, thunk, okay, now it's in reverse. And they're gearing up to move because they just don't know what or how all of the mechanics of how it works. They understand it, but they've never done it to the point that they get it, right? So the other side of this is, obviously we have to build that skill set, right? The other side of it is, in terms of focus and productivity, is a challenge that we'll face is that we live in a world of distraction. We live in a world of information, and everybody's vying for our attention. I don't remember the exact number, but it was like a human being comes across like, I don't know, it was an insane number, like 100,000 calls to action, right? 100,000 different points of, reference or information to do something, or to look at something or read something, right? They come across 100,000 different things a day or something. Like it's insane. Just an incredible amount of information. I don't like I said, I don't know the exact number, but let's just assume that it's high, because frankly it is. There's a lot of people that are vying for our attention to either make money, to make an impact, or to simply maybe even rip you off, right? There's all kinds of information out there and distractions that can very easily set us aside from what our focus and what we want to be productive with. And so what we have to do is we have to train ourselves to have that, that warrior-like mindset, right? Going into battle, the only thing that matters is protecting the home, protecting where they've come from, right? And people are going to put their lives on the line in battle to do that. And if you want really good results in your life, you have to have that kind of a mind frame. You have to build that mind frame, and you have to train yourself, just like a soldier would train sword fighting, or shooting guns, or explosives, or tactics, or whatever, right? Driving a car, you've got to learn that. Driving, communication with your spouse, you have to train and cultivate that skill set with him or her on a regular basis. It's not something that you can just do because you want it, right? So set time aside. Be intentional. Put away distractions, and if you want to really be able to drive that focus and learn how to focus, be intentional about it. Take time to practice being present and completely present with whatever it is that you're doing, and just focusing in and not worrying about all the things you have to do tomorrow, or all the things you have to do in 2 days, or all the things that didn't happen 3 days ago, right? Just be in that moment and focus on whatever it is that you need to focus on. It could be your family, it could be your business, it could be a project, whatever it is. Just be intentional and be present in that moment, and just practice having that focus in the moment. And that's going to start that momentum of, okay, this is what it's like to be here. This is what it's like to have focus and not be distracted. And it could just be 10 minutes a day. It could be, 10 hours a day, right? We're all at different levels. We all have different skill sets. And so start wherever you are and build and build. And incrementally, it's going to get better and better and better and better. And eventually, you'll be able to turn everything to gold, because you've built that skill set, you've built that focus, and you've built that level of productivity that drives and achieves better results in your life. So I'll leave you with that. And I'm excited to talk to you another day. I was excited about today's message, and I hope that you go and actually implement this. This is stuff that's going to change your life. It's changed mine, and I know that it can change yours. So have an incredible day. I'll talk to you soon.